Well, I'm so glad I chose this book as a buddy read, and I absolutely flew through it. So let's talk about it.
Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel and making it the best it can be.
Hey, fantasy fans, welcome back. It's Dan here at Treebeard Book Reviews. I know I sound kind of nasally. I'm still kind of sick. I actually caught COVID last weekend, so that's been fun, and I've been kind of fighting through that. But I'm starting to feel a little bit better, so we got to have a review here for The Winter King. So this is one of the many buddy reads I had going on for the month of November. Really kind of happy to get this review out now and to tell you my thoughts, talk about the plot, talk about the characters, and talk about why I think you'll like this book. So let's start breaking The Winter King down. First off, I will say I did the audiobook version of this. Even though I have the physical, I did a bit of immersive reading where I was listening to the audiobook and reading this as well. Because I was home with COVID, so I actually couldn't read that much, so I just ended up listening to the audio. So the audiobook was narrated by Jonathan Keeble, and what a beautiful voice this man has. And really, from reading it and then now listening to the audiobook is absolutely transformative. I think the audiobook is a better version of the book. And if I was to make a recommendation, I would say pick up the audiobook, especially because there's actually quite a lot of complex names in here. And, he absolutely nails some of these names that, when you're reading them, you're like, I have no idea how to say that. I'm just going to skip over that. Go, like, the names are, I think some of them are also, like, early origin, like Welsh. So they're just really hard to read. And there's Saxon names and there's Britain names. But yeah, if I was to recommend any version of the book to pick up, it would be the audiobook by Jonathan Keeble. The characters, let's talk about the characters here. So the character who you are in the head of, or who's the main character of the book, is Derfel. So Derfel is a Saxon Briton warrior. He was born a Saxon, but he was raised by Merlin, and he is a warrior. He is a straight up warrior, and you're really following his life, or his young life, to where he's about in his late 20s by the end of the book, and he's recounting his life. So actually, to kind of go back a bit, when you first encounter Droffel, he's an old man. How rude! And he's an old man in a monastery. He's like a monk, and it seems like he's paying atonement, and but then he's also being questioned by Queen Igraine, and he is telling the story of his life and the story of King Arthur, or Arthur. So when we join Derfel, he is a young man, and he is being raised by Merlin, and he talks about really the trials he went through and the Britons went through to get to where they are by the end of the book. This is going to be spoiler free. I don't want to give any spoilers really for this book, because it is a fantastic book and you should read it. So the book is broken down into 5 parts, and it's really around part 2 where everything kind of starts to pick up and ramp up. So the story is told like almost epistolary style, where Derfel is writing a recollection of his life, and between the parts it's going to be Derfel kind of interjecting, older Derfel and Igraine talking about the events that kind of happened in the previous part. So it's a really great, the way this was written down by Bernard, the way Bernard Cornwell wrote this was just so fascinating. I'm a big history nerd, and this book really did it for me. It just had me hooked in, probably from word go. I know some people say part 1 was really slow. It was a little bit slower, but I really didn't mind it. I really love the trajectory of the story. But you meet so many fascinating characters, not just Derfel. Like Derfel, you root for Derfel the whole time. You're always on his side. He never shies away from when he does awful things. He's, he commits, some pretty bad stuff, but he admits it, and he kind of says he's paying for that atonement right now. He's such a great character, Derfel. I really enjoyed his honesty, his openness. I mean, you also have to question some of the reliability of the narrator that is Derfel, because he's probably also trying not to say too much and get himself in trouble. But I really like the honest retelling that's going on, and You get to meet other characters through Derfel's eyes, where you meet Merlin.
I am Merlin.
Who is fascinating and just as wizardly and druidic as you would expect. Also a little cold too. I really liked his portrayal of Merlin. He was seen as like a mystic leader, and he was doing his own thing. He's doing what he thinks is right, and I really liked Merlin. I like this portrayal of Merlin. It's not a very high magic Merlin. It's a very more like shamanistic, druidistic Merlin, but it works so well for this story. And he still has that mystique. All right, so another character you meet is obviously Arthur.
I'm Arthur, King of the Britons.
Arthur is an absolutely fascinating character in this story. He is so charismatic. He's so engaging. He's one of those characters, just a scene stealer when he's around. You can't, you can't just be helping in awe of what Bernard Cornwell is crafting with this character. You see his flaws. He's not perfect.
Make me sad. So be it. Come, Patsy.
I really like we don't get a perfect Arthur here. This is a really fun Arthurian retelling, and Arthur just adds. He's the reason we're here. He's the reason the story's being told, and you kind of have to like Arthur as well as much as you like Derfel. And Arthur's just the way he's written, you just cannot help but root for him. That's it. The last character I want to talk about is Nimue. And Nimue is kind of she's also a druid. And she is one of the characters that Derfel admits to being in love with. And she is going to play a pivotal role in Derfel's life and a pivotal role in this story, as she is going to face several trials. And Derfel is going to be there to join her on those trials. And she actually has a lot of power in this book. She gives a lot of power to Derfel. And she also, is a driving force for a lot of his actions in this book. So she is a very complex character. I really liked her. I could see her being, some people not liking her as a character. Oh, she's cold and she doesn't love Derfel, but she loves Derfel in her own way. But she also, she has to do what's right for the gods and for what's best of Britain. So those are the characters I really wanted to highlight. So let's kind of talk about the story here, what's going on, where we're set. So this is set, it's right after the Saxon invasions of Britain, about 6th century AD. So about 100 years after the fall of Rome. Rome has been sacked, Rome is fallen at this point, and Britain is ruled by Uther Pendragon, and Uther Pendragon's oldest son, or his only son, Mordred, was killed in a battle. And Arthur actually ended up saving the day. So I think Uther has some resentment for Arthur there. So Arthur is Uther's son, but he's a bastard.
Bastards!
He's not his true-born son. Well, that's a very fascinating point of the story. And so where the book kind of leaves off in the first part is that the young heir, the son of Mordred, who is also called Mordred, is born, and Uther is left with an heir. And that's kind of where the story kind of kicks off, is with Derfel, who is he's a sworn warrior to Merlin. He was raised by Merlin, but then he kind of comes into the service of Arthur after the death of Uther. And it's about then Arthur securing the kingdom for Mordred. And then there's all these political kind of battles going on between all these other kings that have really these crazy names. But it's really good. It doesn't get bogged down in the politics, I find, with this story. But there is politics there, which I absolutely loved. There's combat there, which I absolutely loved. So this book was just a beautiful mix of the two, where you have this intrigue of the politics, you have the combat that is never kind of overstays its welcome, but then you have these personal struggles that all these characters are going through. Arthur has some struggles. Derfel has some struggles with love. With trying to help his friends, and he's torn between the love of his country, the love of Arthur, and it's so well crafted, this story. It's just baffling how well he does this. It's definitely my favorite Arthurian retelling. So we've talked about characters, we've talked about the plot, and so I just kind of want to talk about just the prose in general. This prose, it's a very dense book. Like it's like if you look at the text, it's pretty small, and it's actually quite a long audiobook. I think it was like 20 hours. But my goodness, there's so much here. The world that Bernard Cornwell crafted, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a masterpiece in my mind. It's definitely one of my favorite books of the year. You know, there's so much that went into building this world. Just very simple stuff that, you know, he's talking about how, like, the clothing they were wearing, the smells that they were experiencing, and what the things that they were seeing, and there's so much detail that is spent, and it felt like no word was wasted, and it really just immersed me within this story. And I'm so glad I chose this as a buddy read. I want to thank Paul, who recommended this book, or who was the one who piloted this whole book to be read as a buddy read. And I think everyone who's joined in on the buddy read has had such a fantastic time with this story. And really just to get on with the rating of this book, this is an absolute 5-star, my highest tier, stunning rating. Again, going to be one of my favorite books of the year. I am so locked into the series now, the Warlord Chronicles, that I've already went and bought Enemy of God and Excalibur to finish off the series. I'm probably going to be doing Enemy of God in December. Just fantastic. Like I said, I'm going to be doing these all in audiobook now. Even though I own these, I just need to listen to them by Jonathan Keeble. Like I said, his rendition of this book it's just transformative, and I don't think there's a better way to read it, to be honest. So that is my review, guys, for The Winter King. It's gonna be tough to top. It's like, you know, reading this book in November, right near the end of the year, when I'm trying to think of my favorite books of the year. Damn, it's up there. So that's it, guys. Just read it. Read Winter King. The month is still, still a lot of November left. Join the buddy read, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.